I wish I could remember all of the words of all of the songs. Cassie and I talk about this several times, but how what she picks just happens to fit so perfectly. And all she has is a title from me. She doesn't really know anything else. But it's beautiful, and I thank you, Cassie, for it. There was a new pastor in town, and he was visiting in the homes of his parishioners. And at one house, it seemed obvious that somebody was home. And he went and knocked on the door, but nobody came to the door. So he took out his business card and wrote Revelations 3:20 on the back of it and stuck it in the door and went on his way. When the offering was being processed the following Sunday, he found that his card had been returned. And on the back of it, this cryptic message was there. It says, Genesis 3:10. So, reaching for his Bible to double-check the citation, he broke up in just hilarious laughter. Revelation 3:20 begins, Behold, I stand at the door and knock. And Genesis 3:10 reads, I heard your voice in the garden, and I was afraid, for I was naked. Now, I was going to tell that on Jean, but I decided not to put her name on it. But y'all know my thoughts now. Repeat with me that which you see on the screen. Together, I am created in the likeness and image of God. Therefore, whatever God is, I am. And this is the truth about me. Take that in. Feel it within your very being, within your very soul. In the Gospel according to Matthew, in the 13th chapter, there are some things in there that a lot of times we don't understand. It's where Jesus was teaching in parables, and the disciples were with him. And the disciples came and asked him. He says, Why do you speak to them in parables? And he answered, To you it has been given to know the secrets of the kingdom of heaven. But to them it has not been given. And I'm going to add the word yet. It says, For to those who have, we're talking about the enlightenment, the understanding, the knowledge of the Christ consciousness. For those of you who have, more will be given. So the more of the awareness of the understanding and the Holy Spirit's voice and the Christ consciousness, that builds. And you get more and more of that. And they will have an abundance. But from those who have nothing, this is where we don't understand, even what they have will be taken away. When we don't understand and we don't listen to the voice of the Holy Spirit, nothing's added to us. And therefore the ego has free rein and can just continue to feed you error thinking. He says, the reason I speak to them in parables is that seeing they do not perceive, and hearing they do not listen, nor do they understand. Now let's equate that to the 3 chapters of Genesis understanding. How much more for those of you who went through that have an understanding, have a clarity of thought? How much more was given you when you opened yourself up to that? It says, with them indeed is fulfilled the prophecy of Isaiah that says, you will indeed listen, but never understand. How many have read the first 3 chapters of Genesis and never got it? And you will indeed look, but never perceive. I'm going to add the word correctly. For this people's heart has grown dull, and their ears are hard of hearing. and they have shut their eyes, so that they might not look with their eyes, and listen with their ears, and understand with their heart, and turn. And Jesus then would heal them. But blessed are your eyes, the disciples, for they see, interseeing, and your ears, they hear, the inner knowingness. Truly I tell you, many prophets and righteous people long to see what you see, but did not see it, and to hear what you hear, but did not hear it. Same thing. How much awakening did you do after the workshop on the Genesis chapters? How do we have a happy day? By listening to the Holy Spirit. By listening to the voice for God. Everything we see with the body's eyes is a distortion of the truth. What we see through the body's eyes is separation, individuality, differences, each thing separate and alone. We see through the body's eyes, what we see through the body's eyes is not the truth. Believing in these distortions comes with joining with the ego. We have joined with the ego and have thought that the distortions were real. This is one of the hardest things in A Course in Miracles, is for people to understand the statement of Jesus in the Course that says everything your eyes have seen, everything your ears have heard, has never existed. That's the dream state that we're in. We're in that dream state, we think, right now, because we see separation. We see individuals. As I am now in the process of awakening to the truth and have been for several years, I do this through joining with the Holy Spirit in my mind. This is an inside job, remember. It happens within. It is the Holy Spirit that shows me that the distortions are unreal. Now, when I say the Holy Spirit, you can say your higher self, because that's truly what the Holy Spirit is. It's the Christ portion that's within you. It's your higher self. It is with the Holy Spirit that I learn to see past bodies, to recognize that we all come from the one mind. And we have not left that mind. We're still at home with God, where God created us. It is the Holy Spirit that brings me to the altar of truth. By remembering that I do not know what anything means on my own, I am then open to Holy Spirit's gentle correction. How easy is that, to let everything else go and listen to the Holy Spirit, because the Holy Spirit will make the transformation in your thought process for you. How easy is that? I am then open to new perception. I can see with the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit shows me where I have been thinking wrongly and returns my mind to the oneness of the Christ consciousness. The Holy Spirit reminds me that separate bodies with separate minds could never be real. The Holy Spirit reminds me that these images are just hallucinations coming from the ego thought system. The Holy Spirit shows me how to unplug from the ego thought system. The Holy Spirit shows me how to not take it so seriously. The Holy Spirit shows me how to be truly helpful in every situation where I am led. The Holy Spirit is my constant companion, helping me awaken to the truth when I lose my way. The Holy Spirit leads me straight to the peace of God, which is an inner feeling and an inner knowingness. How do we have a happy day? Remember that Jesus says we will never understand things of the Spirit with the physical or ego mind. We must use our spiritual mind or thought process to understand spiritual things. In A Course in Miracles, it says this in the workbook. It says, there are no laws but God's. God's laws forever give and never take. Hear him who tells you this and realize how foolish are the laws you thought upheld the world you thought you saw. Then listen further. He will tell you more about the love your Father has for you and about the endless joy he offers you. It continues, let us today open God's channels to him and let his will extend through us to him. Thus is creation endlessly increased. His voice will speak of this to us when we listen, as well as the joys of heaven, which his laws keep limitless forever. When we believe that we are a body or we're a physical entity, we believe that our life depends on obeying the laws of the body, the laws of the world of separation. The laws of God apply to us, but they do not apply to the body, because we are not a body. When our peace is disturbed, when we feel upset or threatened, it is because we are identifying with the false image of a body as what we are, and then we lose our peace. Affirming that we are under no laws but God's is reminding ourselves that we are not a body. We're a true spiritual entity. We are still as love created us, forever love, forever loving. Accepting that we are under no laws but God's is accepting that we are nothing but love. And being love, all we really want is to extend love. By its nature, love always extends itself. Love being fear's opposite, love is always the antidote to fear, because love has no opposite, and we accept the love we are, then fear disappears. I'll tell you a story that unfolded over the last 2 weeks. One thing started with, several of you have heard me mention this, there's a book that I highly recommend that you read. Patricia loaned me a copy of it, and I couldn't put it down until I finished it. But the title of it is, So You Don't Want to Go to Church Anymore. I love it. There are so many lessons in there, it's unreal. Then I mentioned it tomorrow. Tomorrow I found it online. All you've got to do is type in, So You Don't Want to Go to Church Anymore, .org, .pdf, not even dot, just PDF. And it'll open you to a web page where you can download it for free. So it's available to everybody. But it's well worth reading. It is tremendous. And I noticed several things in there that paralleled my life. In there, the story was about this minister who had been in the real estate business and then went into ministry, which same with me. And then circumstances were that he got out of the ministry, which is me, and went back and fell back on the real estate business, which is me, and all of the trials and tribulations that went with it. And this past week, well, I'll give you a little deeper history. First part of last year was devastating to me financially. I didn't really understand everything was going to happen to me and unfold during the year. But we had started this early on, this center here, and I spent a lot of times. I really wore myself out, literally, figuratively, physically, on working on this to try to get it open and ready for Easter. And a lot of you in here worked right along with me, too. And I kept telling myself, as soon as we get it open, then things will slow down and I can this, and this. Well, I had one closing in the real estate business, Dixie, that was a cash deal that was supposed to close. Everything was done. Everything was signed off. Everything was accepted. the morning of closing, the guy backed out completely. Well, that was going to make me enough money to carry me through till I thought maybe I could get my hip surgery done and get over that and everything. And so it didn't. So what do you do? How do you feel? Well, the one thing that I knew was that it took my peace momentarily. And it really hurt. Then the easiest thing to say is, okay, now how am I going to pay my bills? How am I going to live? What am I going to do here, here, and here? Well, I made it, even though IRS didn't get their money the rest of last year. And then this year, I kept telling myself, okay, John, hurry up and get well. You got to get a sale. You got to do this. You got to do that. Because I do make my living in the real estate business. I've already spent my $1 that I earned here. I spent that early on. So I had a piece of property that I'd had almost 2.5 years listed. And I did get an offer on it. And it was going through the normal process of closing. And first one day you're on, the next day you're not. I mean, it's just constant. It's a lake condo, and they were going secondary market financing, which you almost cannot do. And it was supposed to be an in-house loan from a bank that the banker knew, and all of that stuff. So anyhow, just everything constantly. Well, up to the morning of closing, I knew things were going on, but I didn't tell my seller. She's a very dear friend of mine, 80 years old, and I didn't want to put her through that. And I thought if I'm going to tell a story, I'm going to have one good story, and I'm going to save it to find out what happened. Well, first part of last week, I quit laughing, Brittany. I kept looking at the situation. I kept saying to myself, I said, I need this. And finally I said, no, you don't. You're taking it back. God knows your needs, period. So I really turned it over. And I said, how foolish of you, John, even to think otherwise. I turned it over to God, and I says, I reclaim my peace, my inner peace. You know my needs. You take care of it. And I literally let it go. Now, this is not my first rodeo. I've been a licensed broker since 1968, and the real estate business is like this, so that's not unusual. I've gone through this at times before. But my peace was worth more than anything else. My peace immediately returned to where all the ups and downs and this all last week, I just accepted and said okay and went through it because I said, I'm not controlling this anyhow. My peace returned. And up to Friday morning when we were supposed to close, 2 more messages. They ain't going to close. Now the guy hadn't got enough money. He thought he's going to have a little bit more for down payments. We might have to postpone it a week. On and on and on. I just listened to it and took it in. I kept focusing on my peace. I wasn't going to let anybody have that, which means you trust in God. Now, it could have gone either way. Luckily, it closed. But it could have gone either way because it was just up and down. But how much smoother do you think it went when I let go and let God have it? What could I do about it anyhow? Fret, worry, start adding up bills that I didn't have money to pay with? No, none of that helps. None of that adds up. It doesn't help. So, if you want to have a happy day, give it to the Holy Spirit. Give it to the Holy Spirit and really, really mean it, and don't reach up there and take it back. Let it go. Let it go. Trust only in God, and your peace will return, and I promise you, you will have a happy day. So today, let's be vigilant for the perceptions of these fear thoughts and remind ourselves that we are under no laws but God's. We follow that reminder with willingness to accept the love that God has already